On track to win this election. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote that it was going to take a while. We're going to have to be patient until the hard work of tallying the votes is finished. And it ain't over till every vote is counted, every ballot is counted. But we're feeling good. We're feeling good about where we are. We believe one of the nets has suggested we've already won Arizona, but we're confident about Arizona. That's a turnaround. We also just called it for Minnesota, and we're still in the game in Georgia, although that's not one we expected. And we're feeling real good about Wisconsin and Michigan. And by the way, it's going to take time to count the votes. We're going to win Pennsylvania. Yes. I've been talking to the folks in Philly, Allegheny County, Scranton, and they're really encouraged by the turnout and what they see. Look, you know, we could know the results as early as tomorrow morning, but it may take a little longer. As I've said all along, it's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome. And I want to thank every one of you who came out and voted in this election. And by the way, Chris Coons and the Democrats, congratulations here in Delaware. Pardon? Hey, John, the Gov, yeah, the whole team, man. You've done a great job. I'm grateful to the poll workers, to our volunteers, our canvassers, everyone who participated in this democratic process. And I'm grateful to all of my supporters here in Delaware and all across the nation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And folks, you heard me say it before. Every time I walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, he'd yell, "Joey, keep the faith." And my grandma, when she was alive, yelled, "No, Joey, spread it." Keep the faith, guys. We're going to win this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your patience is great. Let's walk over here.
Well, not an acceptance speech, certainly not a concession. In White House parlance, that was a hard...
Okay, so that is Joe Biden coming out and saying that, you know, they're confident, he's confident that they will win this election, mentioning a couple of states, interestingly, Arizona, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio. I mean, you know, this is interesting, and basically saying that it's not my or Donald Trump's sort of, you know, it's not our job to call the election. The votes will be counted, and then the winner will be declared. But the fact is, you know, will we see President Trump come out and do something similar, especially with what's sort of seemingly happened in Florida? Some of these states that you know, Mr. Biden mentioned are still very much in the contention. I mean, it would look like, at least till some time ago, it looked like you know, places like North Carolina, Michigan, even Ohio. Ohio, of course, has now been called for Joe Biden some time back. But for the other states, it looked like they were very much in the play. So, you know, sort of Joe Biden coming out and sort of making a speech to his supporters saying that they're confident that they will come out on top in these states. And these are all swing states, close-ups or toss-ups, as we've been calling them. So it sort of only makes it that much more interesting. But mind you, this is, I mean, you know, in all these places, it's still pretty close. Arizona is another one that Joe Biden mentioned, and he acknowledged that that's not a state that they expected to win, but it's been called for them. So, you know, a bunch of these sort of close states now coming into sharp focus, and sort of Joe Biden, we're hearing from at least Mr. Biden at this point in time, and maybe we will hear from President Trump as well later in the day. Okay, let's go back to Shiv Puri. He's waiting by from Singapore. He's with TVF Capital. We were talking about financials. Shiv, thanks very much for waiting by. The other sort of theme that I know you've been very bullish on is what this pandemic has forced upon all of us in double time, which is digitization. How does that change your view? I mean, in terms of investment implications. What are the implications for two sectors? One is financials, the other is consumer companies.
Yeah, I think the implications are across all sectors. This has only accelerated the pace. I've said before, I fundamentally believe there are only three types of companies. Companies in the technology business, companies that are beneficiaries of technology, and companies that are going to get disrupted by technology. And if a company doesn't know where it falls, it probably falls in the last one. And it's the pandemic has just accelerated the pace of this. And I have to say that some of the companies in the financial services space have been doing a pretty outstanding job, not only right now, but even prior to the pandemic. I think the whole digitization journey, at least in financial services, but really across sectors, involves giving the consumer a seamless, outstanding digital experience. Whether it's using their mobile app, whether it's using any device in which they want to transact, is to first have that front. But that's the first step. I think thereafter, a lot of companies need to spend a lot of time and effort in trying to mine the digital lake that exists in silos within their companies. And that is something a few companies, a few banks and NBFCs have been doing for a while and doing quite successfully. But they're being kept on their toes by the fintechs and the global technology platform companies. So I believe this pandemic has really accelerated that pace. And it's also changed certain habits. So of course, we all know, e-commerce activity is picked up, food delivery is picked up and things like that. Some of these will mean revert. I think there's some behaviors that people are doing during the pandemic, which won't last post the pandemic. But digitization as a theme, I think is super vital, not only for financial services, but across industries.
So Shiv, which other industries, sectors, companies, any more color you could help us with, companies in India which are benefiting from this whole digital, disruption that we're seeing?
Yeah, so I think outside of the broad financial services industry, of course you have, companies that are well known in the unicorn status club that are trying to, disrupt certain spaces. We're seeing some, the largest telecom company in the country trying to, build a whole ecosystem across different industries. But we're also seeing certain consumer companies that have realized that selling into a distributor and forgetting about the product is probably not the right approach. And they want to learn more and more about the customers. And whether that involves digitizing the kiranas or the end sale point, there's a lot of effort that's happening in that space as well.
Shiv, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us on this important day. Appreciate your thoughts here on CNBC TV 18, as always. The market has, let's just put this up. Okay, 40 points now. Bank Nifty is correcting, but Bank Nifty was, it was seeing some profit booking early on. I just want to put this tweet. When Mr. Biden made that speech saying that we are confident we will win, I was saying that maybe later in the evening we will hear, later in the day we will hear from President Trump as well. We've seen a tweet, and this is at the bottom of your screen as well. And a couple of things, basically. I'm going to read out what he's tweeted. He said, "We are up big, but they're trying to steal the election. We will never let them do it. Votes cannot be cast after the polls are closed." Then he says, "I will be making a big statement tonight, a big win. We are up big." Last tweet that we've got is a minute old. It says, "We are up big, but they're trying to steal the election. We will..." Okay, I think he's just sort of put that tweet up again. And "we will never let them do it. Votes cannot be cast after the polls are closed." Some of this stuff is anticipated, but this is also in a way for the markets the worst case. If this is indeed going to be that close that the results themselves are going to be contested, we've already heard from Joe Biden, and now we'll hear from President Trump. Most likely he will mention the state of Florida, in a big way. And those are the projected wins that we have. Michigan, Georgia, Florida, all of them sort of close toss-up states. Then this does get complicated. We'll take a quick break here. What we will do on the other side is we will just run you through a timeline of what happens from here on. which are the dates you need to focus on in terms of by when what needs to be done, all the way leading up to the 20th of January when the new president has to be elected. And I think that should give us some sense of where this may be. I mean, how long we may have to wait before this thing does get decided one way or the other. But one thing is for sure, it's not getting done immediately. So once again, at least so far, like 2016, I mean, in some way, not in a small way, but I would say in about 50% of the way, the results are completely unexpected from what we have, and things could still change. But generally, the assumptions and what the polls were showing was that it's going to be a clean one for Joe Biden. It is not. I mean, it is closer than what most polls thought that the results would be. Okay, more on this in just a bit. But my colleague Manisha is joining in as well. What's happening in other asset classes, especially asset classes like gold? She's got the lowdown. Manisha, morning.
Thank you so much for that, Prashant. Well, we have seen the gold prices trade quite volatile. You know, usually when you look at the history, 1992 onwards, gold tends to gain ahead of the US presidential elections 5 days before the elections. And then in the next 10 days, once the election is announced, it tends to decline. The best of the gains that you saw in gold was in 2004, and the worst of year for gold really has been in 2016. We did see gold jump up after Trump win, but after that it led to a decline, and we did see other equity markets, other asset classes actually do well. So that's exactly what the markets are watching right now as well. 1900 is holding. It's a 1 week highs in case of gold prices, and we have seen 5 monthly gains continue in case of gold. Well, yes, it has been quite volatile on the charts, but we've seen 1850 on the lower side hold as a strong support. Markets do believe that whichever candidate does take over the White House, we are going to look at a stimulus there. So $2,000 per ounce by the month of Jan 20, before the US president takes over, you will see the gold prices trading around those all-time highs is what the markets are working with. But then remember, this year it's quite different. It's not just about the US presidential elections. We've seen the gold prices gain up because of the surging COVID cases. And then once the presidential election is done with, you have the US Fed meeting, which kickstarts today. So that announcement is coming tomorrow. The US jobs data is on Friday. So there is just plenty happening in this week, which the gold prices will continue to react to. And in middle of that, you also have seen the physical buying pick up in Asian markets, in India and China because of the festivities as well. So while gold is clearly watching on what will happen on stimulus, the US dollar, and also the vaccine, there is just too much to watch out for, and the markets believe that the gold prices are good to buy from here on. Almost all the international banks and brokerages are calling a fresh new all-time highs in the next year. So that is where we stand at this point.
Thanks, Manisha, for that. We'll slip into a short break on that note. On the other side, the management of Relaxo Footwear will join in to detail their Q2 numbers and share the outlook for the future. Stay tuned.